Hi, and welcome back to Kelly's Chronicles. We're really excited to have you here this week. We hope you guys had a wonderful week and got some summer sun and maybe did some gardening or went out over to the beach or something like that. We've got our favorite guest here today, Dad, Chuck, wearing his awesome Hawaiian Coast Guard shirt. I think that's probably one of my favorite ones you got on there, Dad. That's a good one. How's your week been, Dad?
Um, Interesting. And uh, went yesterday. We went down to myself and Al Call, the neighbor, went down. He's also in Bishop. Uh, he's one of the counselors in the elders quorum, so he does a lot of like public relations stuff. He invited me to go with him down to the hospital in Ocala and visit with a gentleman there. I think he's in his final days. He's up in his 80s, having kidney failure and he's on oxygen.
So you went to go visit
Not
him?
doing well. And we
Yeah.
went to just socialize with him for a bit. And then, uh, incidentally, there was another member of the church in the same hospital having back surgery. So we went and saw him. And he's doing fine. He's like 82,
Still kicking.
healthy as can be.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you went and visited some friends. And sometimes it's good to see your friends and get some comfort from that, especially when you're not doing too good and not too long in this life. So it was really nice that you went and saw them. Is there anything else that you got done this week with Mom on the farm?
Uh, yeah, we went out and I went out yesterday also and worked in the went out and picked goji berries and worked,
Oh,
worked to contain some of the goji berries because they're really kind of they're a very I guess stemmy plants. They send out these big long shoots, maybe 3-4 feet long, and they just lay down in the ground. So you have to. So I went in there and kind of gathered them up and uh, pulled up a bunch of weeds. And your mom was out using the mower this morning, mowed all of the goji berry patch. It was yeah.
ah,
So
okay.
we're and the elderberries are starting to come on. We're going to have lots of elderberries.
Dang. Well, that's good. I'm glad. I know Mom and her sister Auntie Joyce, they have their elderberry business going on. So we hope for many the plants to do really well and have many berries grow so that they can sell them and have their little business going. So,
Yeah.
well, that's good. I'm glad you had a pretty good week. Kind of quiet. We were in Nashville a few days ago and um, it thunderstormed on our loadout, so they had to sit for 3.5 hours waiting to load the trucks. So we were kind of hustling to get down here to Miami. So now we're down here in Miami at the Dolphins Stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium. If you remember, that's where they filmed Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. It's down here at
Yeah.
the stadium. So that's definitely a family favorite movie. so so we're over here and we're just kind of trying to relax and have a pretty good day and we got our first show tonight, so that should go pretty good. So the last time we talked, we went over a little bit about we had some fun stories about your grandpa and your great grandpa and your and a little bit more about your family. And we just had some really fun stories. And the last time we kind of left off with your story, you and your mom were headed to California on a Silver Zephyr train. So we kind of wanted to pick up from there and keep going. We got some fun stories from California and some of your journeys across the United States and then back up into Alaska. So you're just kind of everywhere following your dad around, and we just kind of wanted to keep going with that timeline. We'll have some neat questions along the way and some fun stories that I kind of thought of, as we went through this week. So you and your mom were living in Colorado. Your mom, your stepmom is a new bride. She's taking care of her stepson, her new son, as we like to call it nowadays, bonus sons and daughters. I've got a bonus son and daughter. and so your dad writes her or calls her and says, "Come on to California, I got an apartment for us." So you guys hopped on the train and headed over to California to this apartment. And you were telling me some fun stories yesterday about what you did when you got there.
Yeah, well, we're living in what's now called Old Town Huntington Beach. Apparently, the city of Huntington Beach has got they have a geographic area full of houses and everything. That's designated as Old Town Huntington Beach, and they passed city ordinances and stuff that restrict what you can do to your property in Old Town. Basically, you can't do any construction, renovation, modification of your house unless it's approved by the planning committee. So they preserve that area. It's at least some of the houses are 100 years old. The house we lived in was now 70 or 80 years old, maybe even older than that, maybe even approaching 100 years old, because we were there in the early 50s. And, it was old when we moved. Yeah, we lived in over a garage and had a big set of steps going up to the apartment, and right below us was the landlady. She, or the owner of the house. She had a little patch of grass outside her back door. You're looking right, our apartment faced that. And he had a little window. I remember that. It had like a little window it wasn't a glass window. It was a hole in the wall with a wooden shutter, I guess, kind of like close it off. So I'd like to go up there and open that up and look down on something to do. And anyway, like I said, this was a raised bed. There was a wall on one side and a sidewalk right next to the grass area. And on the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the wall, was a flower bed. And it was ice plant, which is a succulent plant that grows like semi-arid in California. It has like a fuzz on the leaves, makes it look like it has ice on it. All the ice. Anyway, me and one other kid, and I was like 5. We decided we didn't like ice playing. We went full out through the sidewalk. And my dad had me out. I mean, he was, what are you doing? I mean, that's the landlady. She's liable to throw us out of here, put us on the street. So
Full of flowers.
you need to you need to go down there with your wagon and pick all that stuff up, and we'll go talk to you. If you can't plant something else there or something, make up for this for your mistake. Yeah, not good. And
Not
then,
good.
then
Not
there was
good
a
at all.
railroad, and right, I mean, it was like maybe 150 feet, 100, 200 feet from the house. Railroad track ran right across the street. Railroad crossed the street that we lived on, so it was right there. And I was out. There was a neighbor girl that, like, a playmate, and we were out there one day on the railroad tracks, and there was a cardboard box. Where it came from? It was a cardboard box. It was flattened out, even just trash, basically, laying there. And we got into a discussion about whose cardboard box it was. I don't know if I was gonna take it home, let Mom use it. I don't know, but I wanted that cardboard box, and his girl wanted the cardboard box. So we got into a little wrestling match. She pulled a quarter-size piece of my hair out of my head, reached up,
Ow!
yanked it out, and well, I mean that became her cardboard box.
Really fast.
I vacated the premises really quick. Went back home, and I mean, it was bleeding and everything. Mom, oh, what happened? Oh, this girl pulled my hair out. Hey.
Man.
But I'm not sure but she put stuff
Just
on it.
yank your hair out. I'm getting this box.
Maybe gave me a glass of chocolate milk or something. I don't know, but that was the epic of the great cardboard box episode. And I used to go out. Now this train would come by and it had sugar beets on it. I think it was a spur line that ran to a sugar beet processing plant, because it was not always, but there were times when these trains would go by with sugar beets on it. They were like in a gondola, and it was piled. The gondola was completely full of sugar beets, that to the extent that some of them would fall off onto the railroad track.
Yeah.
So I would go down, and if there was sugar beets there, I'd pick them up and bring them back to Mom, and she'd cook them up. It's kind of like a turnip, only it's got a higher sugar content than a turnip. She being from the South, she knew how to cook turnips. So we would. I'm not saying we could do that every day, but maybe once a week or 2-3 times a month, I would find these
Every
sugar
once in a while.
and bring it back to Mom. So yeah,
Is the sugar beet is it sweet? I don't think I've ever had a sugar beet before. I've had beets, but I don't think I've ever had a sugar beet.
Yeah, well, they can be they're huge. They can be like a couple of pounds. They're like a giant carrot, I guess you would say.
Okay, I think I've seen this before.
They're a dark color. I can't remember if it was dark green, with dirt on it or what, but they're a root crop, of course, with a beet. So it's not red like a beet, if I remember right. I think it's more green, more brown. They were big. almost big as me. Well,
That's
uh, uh,
dragging those
yeah,
things in. It's funny.
mom was happy to get him, and it supplemented our diet.
Yeah. She's probably all
So
proud of you for bringing him in. Kind of like a
yeah,
little gift. That's cute.
yeah, a little farmer out there harvesting my sugar beet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
waiting by the
yeah,
railroad track
and
for
then
you.
yeah, we were about. I don't know if I told this one about the little girl on the beach. Did I tell you about that one before?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, Dad. Now this was about Dad being in the Marines and having a Marine uh, family living close to us at Huntington Beach. The Broadbecks. I didn't go into that.
I don't
Well,
I don't I don't know.
okay. Here's the story. Dad, Dad was stationed at Pendleton. He was a small arms instructor and a range master at the rifle range, and as
Correct.
such, he was in the Marine Corps very valuable. The Marines, that everybody in the Marines is a rifle, so you have to qualify every year on a rifle. Well, he had a friend, this other guy named George Broadbeck. George Broadbeck was also a small arms instructor and a range master. They had this range was huge. It was like a quarter of a mile long. This big berm about a quarter mile long. Marines shooting off both sides of the berm down towards the pits. Anyway, him and George Broadbeck became very good friends. And then when they deployed the Marines to Korea, the battalion that George and Dad was in went to Korea. Those two men stayed behind to train the Marines.
Oh, okay.
And, the battalion, this is the story, is the battalion was in, they were in these airplanes as flying into Korea, and they were mistaken for enemy aircraft and shot down.
Oh my gosh.
So the battalion basically was wiped out, except for George and my dad.
Yikes. That's crazy.
And so George Broadbeck's wife, they had one kid, and the Marine wives kind of like stuck together. And so
Uh-huh.
mom, we only lived about a quarter of a mile from the beach, so mom and this uh, Broadbeck wife would go to the beach, and I got pictures of myself. It's back in the day, weren't any surfers, anything like that. A beach, but
Yeah.
anyway, the little the Broadbecks had a little girl, and she would come down to the beach with her mom, and we would play big sand castles and all that. Well, the little girl's name was Emily.
Oh yeah.
So maybe subconsciously, I sought out another Emily for
That's right.
companion.
You were
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna find the Emily of my dreams.
But she didn't look anything like she was. She had dark hair and had bangs, short dark hair. So she looked.
I don't think I've ever met uh an unkind or unfriendly or unloving Emily in my life. Probably because I have a great mom.
Yeah, good, good name.
It is a good name. It's a
Yeah.
good name, and it's also a good name for all the nieces and nephews because they can call her Annie M, just like on The Wizard of Oz. Annie M, Annie M. That's right.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of fun with your little friend. At least you made one friend that didn't try to rip out your hair in California as a child. So
Really.
That's good. Maybe
Oh
you shouldn't have so many. Maybe you shouldn't have so many friends that are girls. You know, they seem
yeah.
kind
And
of mean.
one other thing is, I was the age to go to kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
that's right. You were about 5.
apparently, I don't know all the details, but my mom and put me in kindergarten, and I can remember the first day of kindergarten. They had the playground surrounded with a chain link fence. They sent me outside to play, and I didn't want to. I was like, I don't know. I guess being separated from my mom or something. But I remember being going over to the fence crying. That's all I can remember
Oh,
about that. And then
yeah.
also they had nap time, and they had these little mats that you put down the floor, and you would take a nap. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a good napper because I would get a gold star on
A
my
gold
this was on my hand or something.
a gold star
And
for napping.
and I also remember they had a tag. I rode a school bus.
Okay.
They had this little tag on a string on one of my buttons, and so the bus driver, when I came on board, he would look at the tag on my button and take me home. And I always wondered. I said, what if somebody would have tore that button off, or that tag off my button?
Yeah.
I would still be wandering the streets of Huntington Beach, looking for home. Somebody stole my tag.
We're wandering around.
Can you imagine that? They would never do that now, ever. I mean,
No. No.
that was old school stuff there.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Now.
mean, I was all alone on that bus. I mean, there was no adult supervision at all. It was like a little tag on my butt. Yeah, that was
As a
a
different
that was my
time.
ticket home.
As
So
a different time, different kinds of people, and I mean, it was still dangerous in a way, you know, with certain things, but for the most part, very safe.
it was a
Very
safe
safe to
world
raise your
because
children and
adults
be a
took care.
child.
You know, they cared for the kids. I mean,
Yes.
you could be like, you know, doing something wrong or wandering around and getting in, and there would be an adult would say, "What are you doing? Who's your
Mm-hmm.
mother? You know, where do you
Yeah.
live? You know."
Who's your dad?
And they weren't being malicious. They just were taking care of you. And
Yes.
now, of course, now it's totally opposite. You know, people are, something like that. They would take advantage of it in a bad way.
Sometimes. But there
Just
are
a
those that
different
are like, "Where's your
old.
mom?" You see a random kid wandering around, and you go wonder where their mom and dad are. You know, there's still
Right.
good people out there in the world. I promise. I've seen it, and but yeah, it's definitely a different time. Definitely a different environment, especially for California. You know,
Oh
just
yeah,
different, totally different nowadays. Um, so you basically just get on a public bus, and then have a little button on your coat, and then
oh,
they know to take you home.
yeah. I'm not sure if it was a municipal bus or a school bus. I think it might have been a school bus,
Were there
but
adults on the bus with you? Were there like
no.
like different people?
As far as I can remember, just kids.
Okay.
The only, the only identifying thing I had was that tag on my butt, and
Right.
you know, totally different. And oh, here's another good one. That was when we first had television. It was back in the early days of television. We had a television apartment, and it was a big box.
Do you
Just a
remember a time where there wasn't TV? Like, do you remember not having a television?
oh yeah, in
Yeah.
Alaska.
Well,
We had
okay,
no TV in Alaska.
so when was
Yeah.
do you remember like the first time you ever saw television?
Well, yeah, I was in California.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was that like?
I,
Like, what was that experience like? Were you like, whoa, or, you know, kind of like the first time I saw a mobile telephone, like outside of the house, I was like, whoa, that's a weird, what's that? What is that? Cell phone? What is
yeah,
that? Is
I can remember there was lots of wrestling.
okay.
There was lots of wrestling, and there
On the
was
TV?
one wrestler. Well, two I can remember. It was Gorgeous George and Crusher Lazowski, and uh, and of course, it was all typical professional wrestling. It's all staged, but it was really funny to. And I can't really remember what I can remember watching it. Can't remember anything about it, except for the two wrestlers, Gorgeous George and Crusher Lazowski, and and the TV was set on a chair. I mean, this is like I said, a big box. It's a portable TV, but still it was pretty good size. And it
Yeah.
had this little kid. I think mom was babysitting, and it was this
Okay.
one kid, probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years old, little bitty guy, and he went over and pulled the TV over on himself.
Oh, ow.
This TV probably weighed, 40 pounds or something.
Yeah, those TVs were
Pulled,
heavy back then.
uh, pulled the TV over on himself. Mom went ballistic, running around and got the TV off of him. He was crying and everything. Didn't hurt him,
Oh,
but I remember that incident.
right.
It was dramatic issue.
Yeah, that, ooh, that definitely had to hurt. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah, I guess I never really thought of that. I guess back in the day I thought that TVs were always just so huge, and really big, but if you think about it, like if you were in the military or something, you had like a little portable TV, or if you were in the dorms, you had a little portable TV, and the big ones were the family televisions.
uh,
Yeah, that
yeah,
you would have in the house.
they had the console TVs that
Yeah.
were like 20. Big thing was 24-inch TV. If you had a 24-inch TV, like you were in the
You were the
crowd.
elite.
And I'm not sure how big the screen was on this, but definitely it wasn't a console. It was a portable TV. Uh, yeah, and I think the big concern was, did he break the TV?
Yeah.
You know, anyway, yeah, that was one of the incidents that happened there. And there was a yeah, and we put Dad was training these Marines, like we were saying earlier, and they were training them for combat in Korea. So it was pretty rugged, and they would take these forced marches. Some of them were like 25, some 50, some even 100-mile forced march. In other words, you didn't fall out. You only got to rest when they told you could rest,
Oh,
and you
it's rough.
better keep up or you were in trouble.
Mm.
So they had forced marches up in the mountains above Camp Pendleton, and Dad was up there with those guys, helping to train them. And he had kind of flat feet. He didn't have the best feet in the world, and he just started physically breaking down, just so strenuous. So he went to his boss, the captain. He said, "Cap, says I can't do this. I'm destroying my body. Is there any way I can get out of the infantry, get into like armor or aviation, fly or anything?" where I don't have these forced markers. The captain just says, once a grunt, always saying it. And so Dad said, okay. His enlistment was he was in the Marine Reserves.
Yeah.
It wasn't he was recalled to active duty, but he was still a Marine reservist. So I think what he did is he did what they call a lateral. And what it is, if you're on active duty in the military, you can go you have to go through the chain of command and everything. Put in a request to go to another branch of service. So I think he lateraled from the Marines. Uh, so he hated it. He loved the Marines. That was his
Did that
life.
affect, like, could you tell that he was having kind of a hard time at work, at home? Did he take his work home with him, kind of thing? And, or was
Uh,
he very quiet about it?
no, I didn't remember. I don't remember him being any different. No. Of course, it wasn't the relationship with my parents, my mom and my dad and my stepmother was kind of distant. No
Right.
real communication. I don't think they ever really directly talked to me. They would like kind of talk to mom, and maybe I'd be like an adjunct, like, "Oh, how are you doing today, Skippy?" And that was, no, I don't remember going anywhere except to driving. We go to the drive-in. That was the only other than his home life. And we go to the drive-in. That was kind of a exciting thing sometimes because we go to the drive-in. If you know anything about California, they have fog there like you have never seen.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that cold Pacific Ocean, warm California beach or whatever. That fog would roll in, and one night we went to see this movie at the drive-in. Fog rolled in, and you couldn't see the screen anymore. So Dad started heading for home, and he followed the tail lights of another car. That's how he got home. He couldn't see anything. No street
Wow.
lights, no stop signs, nothing. And he just was able to, it wasn't that far from home, but he followed this tail lights of this car until we got over close to where he lived. And I don't know how I guess he kind of went by field to get her. Maybe the fog lifted a little bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. But I can remember that. I remember those terrible fog would roll in California. Unbelievable. And anyway, Dad gets out the Marines and he goes into the Air Force. He got a set of orders. First joining Air Force, he said, report to Keesler Air Force Base in Gulfport, Mississippi. You're going to go to mechanics. I'm not sure if it was a diesel mechanic school or just a mechanic, like becoming a mechanic. Because he was a mechanic in civilian. Worked at the Buick Garage in Burlington. So he was a mechanic, and he very very good mechanic too. So they sent him to school, and so we drove from California. We had this old. This is like the early '50s. He had this probably a 48, 47 Ford, and semi-reliable. He takes off from California, he's going to go to Colorado and see his. We always went to Colorado to see Grandma. He was, I'd say, he was a mama's boy. Maybe that's kind of an intro. He loved his parents, and he loved being back home. So he would always, if we got any kind of vacation or leave, he went home. So we head to Colorado. You get over in Utah, right? And we're going north towards Salt Lake, and Dad got out the road map. Back then, he had paper road maps folded up. He gets out the road map, looks, and he sees this road going through the mountains over to this other highway that went to Denver. So he said, "Well, I don't want to go to Salt Lake. I want to go to Denver. That's close to home."
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on this shortcut. So here we go, taking off. And the road got narrower and narrower, went down to one lane. And then it was like two tracks in grass. And we're up on top of this flipping mountain. And I can remember distinctly standing outside that old Ford and looking down thousands of feet down into this valley, and little
Whoa.
tiny cars, going down the road way, way down there. And the car overheated. We got to the top of this mountain and the car's overheated.
Oh my God.
Over and it was snow on the ground. I thought it was like in the spring, I think. Can't remember exactly when it was, but there was still snow up on top of this mountain. He's stuffing snow in the radiator, trying to cool the engine down. And then the car started, and we went down the other side. The road kept getting wider and wider until we were on a regular road, 2-lane road. I found out later where I found the shortcut that he took.
Oh.
And it was on Big Rock Candy Mountain, Idaho, Big Rock Candy Mountain. They wrote songs about that.
Like the song?
And we were up on top of Big Rock Candy Mountain.
Isn't that a song they sung in that movie Oh Brother We're Out though?
Might have been.
The Big Rock Candy Mountains where the hens lay soft wild eggs.
Yeah.
And the I think the farm dogs all have rubber teeth, and I can't remember the rest of the words to it, but it's a really fun song.
I think that's that's the one you're thinking about, Big Rock Candy Mountain.
Yeah.
That's in Utah. I found it.
Ah.
It's still the shortcut is still there, but I don't think they maintain it in the winter.
It's probably paved now.
Yeah, it's narrow
instead of a grassy patch.
Yeah, it goes across. It goes from 15. It goes across Big Rock Candy Mountain. It comes out on the road that goes up to Price and Manti.
Oh, I know where that's at. I've taken that route with my semi plenty of times. And there's a lot of little roads up that way, so
yeah,
that's a little bit scary out there. There's not a lot out there even now. So that's well, I'm glad your dad was a pretty good mechanic and knew what he was doing. Now you're a very good mechanic. Did you and your dad ever work on cars together? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I would hand him tools, and he was always working on cars. We always had these older cars that were like marginally operational, and he would always doing something in cars. All my youth. Although he did have, back when he got to Georgia later in the 50s, he was able to buy a 55 Ford brand new. But the kicker was it was not a very good car. He didn't have very long. Yeah, the warranties were like 10,000 miles.
Oh.
And he had to work on, they would get like 15, 20,000 miles and they'd start breaking. And that's there's other times when we worked together on cars. like our little family thing that we didn't. I don't know. We just had a very almost like a casual relationship,
Yeah. Ah,
and he was,
sometimes.
you know, he was a good guy and a good provider, and he loved mom. That's really all that counts. What I, as a child, I don't, especially back in those days, you were like to be seen and not heard, and there was no that generation. That's the greatest generation, and they weren't into emotional uh, things. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like men didn't cry, and women did what they were told, and and the women run the house, and the man worked in the yard, worked on the cars, had a
Mm-hmm.
job. Very rarely worked outside of the house. Man was the breadwinner, and that was we were traditional in that respect. Uh, I I kind of looking back, I wish we would have been more uh, touchy feely, where I'd really like to got a hug and a kiss her once in a while with mom, but you know, just wasn't the way she was raised. So
Yeah.
I was raised that way, and I don't, she was still she took very good care of the house. She was always cleaning and dusting and doing laundry and cooking. She's a wonderful in that regard, But uh, as far as like that was one thing about Grandma Olson that she was huggy feely, kissy, warm fuzzy type. Where she was that that made her even more special because I got affection from her that I didn't get.
From your biological mom was affectionate, but your stepmom was not.
To be honest with you, I have no memory of her at all. None.
Of
I,
your
I know I don't. When I was a little kid, I don't remember anything about her. Nothing. And I don't remember anything about Larry. Larry was living with until mom got the divorce. Mom and I went with dad, but I don't remember anything about him either, except one talk about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I think
yeah,
he was chasing. I don't remember
but you don't remember that.
distinctly what I've been running around the house. I don't know, but I kind of have a feeling that we were playing around in the house, and
So
allegedly that grandma wouldn't let him come in the house. And I don't know. I don't.
I don't know. Well, that's kind of the beauty of kind of piecing together stories. Sometimes you kind of have to fill in the blanks yourself. When was the first time? So I mean, you were raised by your stepmom. Didn't find
Right.
out that she was your real mom until you were 12. And we talked about how you kind of already knew that. You had that feeling and in your heart, and so when was the first time that you remember meeting your biological mom?
I was about 20 years old. I was on leave from the Navy, and I was in Golden, Colorado, and John Brisky, who J. Bob's dad, uh, he was dad and him got along real well because he was a Marine. John Brisky was ex-Marine. He went through, I mean, hell, Marine. He was in all of these battles in the islands of like Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima. He was in all of those. And he was at some times he was the only survivor of his company
Oh, wow.
or his platoon. Like he'd be in a platoon, everybody would wipe out except John Briscoe. And he'd be in a company, everybody wiped out except John Briscoe. And he just went through this terrible, terrible time in the Pacific World War II. And of course he had PTSD. Well, he self-medicated. He
Oh,
drank a lot, but he was a great man.
yeah.
And we were sitting on the back porch of his house there in Golden and drinking Schlitz tall boys. And he said something about, when you and your mom and your dad divorced, she came to Loveland and he stayed in Burlington. Well, your brother, Larry, had a big wardrobe of clothes. I mean, he had like boxes and boxes of clothes. You had all your clothes in back in the day, saltine crackers came in metal boxes. They were the same size as the cardboard box, but they were metal. Had a little lid on one to take a cracker. He said all my clothes were in that cracker box. And I said, really? He said, yeah. That's why Larry went with her, because she loved him a lot more than you. I went, really? Well, that's and
Yeah.
and we just kept on. We had a couple more beers, and I said, I think I'm gonna go up and talk to her, because we were in Golden and she was up in Weld County, probably about 50 or 60 miles away, up there north of Denver. And so I got one of my cousins, Terry, as a J. Bob's brother, and he got me in his Jeep, had a real neat Jeep, and we drove Jeep to Weld County. And I don't know how I knew where she lived, but it was drive on that's 25 that goes out of Denver, goes up to
Hmm.
Wyoming, and her house was on this hill right next to 25. You could see it for miles. Big
Oh,
old farm. And so that's where I think John Brisky knew where it was and told me anyway. Somehow we found the house. And we come roaring up in the yard, and parked the Jeep. Terry stayed in the Jeep, and I went up to the house. And Wanda and Bonnie, I think just Wanda and Bonnie, were in the house helping her mom in the kitchen. They were like, 12 years old or something. And
yeah.
and I went in there and I said, Mom was all, glad to see me, gave me a hug, kissed me, said I missed you so much. And I said, well, this is not a social call. I've found out some things about the divorce, Dad, and I'm very disappointed what went on, how I was treated. That I would prefer to not hear it. I know, right? Uh, my mom, my stepmother, I really don't think I want to have one heavy. Kind of take it back. It's pretty. I was half in the bag. I really don't remember a lot of detail. That was first time I had seen that woman since I was a baby.
And she recognized you?
I had not seen her for like 18 years,
Wow.
and I had never seen Wanda or Bonnie. So
That's some guts right there to almost walk up to a complete stranger and be like, "Hey, you were kind of a jerk." And I didn't like that. Or, something like that, like I didn't like the way that I heard about how you treated me. Like that's kind of got some guts for that one. So,
and I don't think I gave her any. I don't think I was there long enough for her to defend her position. Or I didn't even care. I'd heard it from John Brisky was like, to me, was like almost like a Superman or something. What
yeah.
he went through and survived, he was like, wow, this guy is totally awesome. And anything he says is gospel. He would never lie to me. He had no reason to lie to me. And that
No,
he was there. He was
they
there.
always say,
He knew. Yeah, he knew what went on between Dad and Ruby.
yeah,
Him and Dad were really good buds, and Dad. John Brisky was living in Burlington, so they hung out together in Burlington. Dad was working in the garage, and John Brisky was doing construction work locally, and yeah, so he had no reason to tell me a bit. So whatever.
so that, I mean, that's, they always say a lot of times a drunk is an honest man. Or alcohol make you honest, make you come out with a lot of, you know, you'll tell the truth.
Yeah,
And might have taken him just drinking just to tell you something that was pretty painful, but I almost feel like she kind of maybe I mean there were many times where she could have invited you to come see her, but she chose not to. So, and that's kind of interesting to think about. But it is also interesting that she was really excited to see you. The fact that she
yeah,
recognized you. She knew
oh
instantly that
yeah,
you were her child, you know? But still, I mean, I would have probably wanted my kid to come and see me a lot sooner. And
yeah.
kind of sad that she just didn't really, encourage that. So, even though you were raised by your stepmom, she was a good woman. She raised you and she loved you in the best way that she knew how to love you. It's what she had. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, and it can be hard for a woman sometimes having to take on someone else's kid. I can understand that.
And I think that my personal opinion is his dad was still in love with her.
Really?
Probably wasn't the day he died, but this other guy came into her life. She just basically
Yeah.
abandoned, abandoned her own child. So I think that's where John Brisky. I think he knew he was a witness to all this stuff, and yeah, I don't
I
think
didn't like that. Yeah.
I think Dad really had strong feelings for Ruby, and would have probably if that other guy would have come along, and I think they would have stayed married. But yeah,
Probably.
that was Ruby's decision. Dad wasn't around to influence her one way or the other. She was 150 miles away. Made that
Yeah.
decision. uh, different, with a different guy. He had that lame excuse about you want to be a farm wife.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Yeah. She knew what she was
I want to
doing.
be an astronaut too,
Exactly.
but I don't have a spaceship.
Exactly.
Dad,
So,
Dad
I mean,
had he had a reasonable and tangible and what the reason why he didn't like farming was obvious. You do the man. He was I mean, the absolute worst condition. He was like a slave at a dairy farm.
yeah,
That just he didn't want
a
nothing to
lot
do
of hard work.
with that. He was done.
Wasn't a lot of money to go around. So,
And mom, I don't think mom respected that he didn't want to farm. He wanted to be in the military. He loved the Marine. He wanted to make that his life.
hmm
He didn't get out of the Marine. He stayed a Marine. Marine Reserve. They're different than other reserves. Other reserves, there's like a big war or something. They they generally don't call up the reserves. They leave them at home to do other things. Whereas the Marines, there's stuff going on, boy. You're back on active duty. They deploy you with the regular Marines. Might be a reserve, but you'll get yourself in trouble even in the reserves.
yeah. I mean, so as as you were growing up with two parents that that weren't as loving as what you probably really needed, and having a biological mom that was basically MIA. How did that? There had to have been a time where you kind of thought to yourself, when I become a parent, I'm not going to be like that. Because I remember as a kid you being a very loving dad. That there was a lot of hugs and kisses, and there were a lot of just moments where we always knew we could come and sit and talk to you, and just have you and mom were always there. There was always love in the home. And of course, we, like all families, we had our rough moments, but there was always love. And I don't think I ever remember a time we still do this, where before we leave the house, we say, I love you. Like when we walk out the door. That's how it is. So, I think for you had a moment growing up, or maybe into your adult life. Maybe we were sitting in a foxhole somewhere, and you were like, when I have kids, I'm gonna tell them I love them every day.
Yeah.
So I feel like even though everything happens for a reason, and even though you had parents that were distant and maybe not loving the way that you need to be loving, it made an impact later on in our lives with us.
Yeah.
With the love that you shared with us, and had us feel in our lives, in our home, in our family. You and mom did a phenomenal job at that. So I think it paid off in the end, personally. So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And if it would have been, the whole situation would have been different, and I had been raised as a farm boy in northern Colorado,
Probably
Uh,
would have never met mom.
oh, definitely. I mean, that would have. I probably wouldn't have found the church and all the goodness that's brought into my life.
Yeah, you wouldn't have become religious.
And I
Mm,
have you. You would have probably never. You would have
I
been
would
a
have been, I would have been,
spirit. Spirit might have inhabited a body, but it wouldn't have been around
I
me.
would have been brunette with hazel eyes instead of blonde with blue eyes.
And that's
Something
one
like
thing.
that.
One thing when you stop and think about, the majority of the world people are, they're poverty stricken. They have no money. They have no education. They have no good housing or good medical care, and they're living in, you know, primitive villages, and that's the way the majority of the world is. All of Asia, practically, and all of Africa, especially Africa, but people live in abject poverty. I say, well, I am so blessed to have been born in America to good parents that weren't alcoholic, drug addicts, or whatever. That even though I was in a broken home, there was still love, and they didn't press it, which is lame. You know, I
Yeah.
still never went hungry. I never went without clothes or shoes. If I was sick, was taken care of, had, had dental care. It was I
Absolutely.
had a good childhood, basically, and uh, the fact that I wasn't with my biological mother is probably unimportant. She had her
I would say
agenda
so.
and her thing going on. She went off on a tangent, but I wasn't thrown out in the street like some kids probably. Their parents divorce and
Yeah.
kids go out
Things
and
get
earn some
rough.
money. Get out of my life. Get out of here.
Absolutely. That you were
Or rather than
always,
an aggressive man. They could have, Dad could have been an aggressive man. He could have
yeah.
beat me, and uh, you know, been very strict and everything. What? Very
Yeah,
mellow.
yes. He was
My
very
dad,
loving. Well, I mean, he wasn't
very.
loving, but he was very, you know, attentive to his duties as a father and a husband, which is good, you know. So I think that's all, something that you can definitely appreciate. A lot of people dwell on like the bad things from their childhood and they'll just focus on those, but I think it's really important for people to look back on all the really good things. That's what I appreciate about my husband Danny is that he he maybe didn't grow up in the most ideal circumstances, but I rarely hear anything negative come out of his mouth about his childhood. It's always very positive. And that's something that I fell in love with, somebody that was really positive about their childhood because I was positive about my childhood, and I was like, I had a great childhood, you know. I had a really good childhood, and I'm grateful for that, and I love that, I love that I have some wonderful memories and so much happiness. There's always going to be like some sadness and some horrible memories here and there, but there's nothing you can do about that. That's life. That's how we learn and grow.
Uh,
So I
and
I think that's wonderful.
I look back on I guess a total package of my childhood, and the time I had in Georgia, the time I was uh, probably it was second grade till seventh grade. I was like halfway through, but all that time, and like 5.5 years, like paradise.
Because you went from California to Mississippi / Georgia, right?
Well, we went to Alaska from
When were you guys in
Mississippi.
Alaska?
Went to Alaska, and then from Alaska back to Georgia.
So it's
Wow.
so it's California, so California, went to go visit your grandparents, went to Mississippi, and then went to Alaska,
Yep.
and then came back to Georgia, to southern Georgia. Okay.
Yep.
How to get the
Yep.
timeline right there.
Yeah, and that Georgia time was the best. The best.
Yeah.
To have more good memories. It was more really weird experiences there. And, just kind of impressed in your mind, all this great, great time. I think my dad was very satisfied with his job, and he was working in a power plant for a radar site. It was a radar site went south out of where we were living, go like about 2 miles, and you were right next to the Air Force base. And on the other side of the road, on the west side of the road, the right side of the road, was a huge radar site. It had 2 gigantic radar antennas, and there was a power plant there, big, huge power plant, supplied power to these 2 radars. That's where Dad worked in the power plant. And this engine
Okay.
that he worked on was huge. It was as big as a locomotive. Right? It was big. And all it was there for was the engine turned a generator, generated electricity, and that went to the radar. And
Oh,
so these radars are so powerful that you could put a hot dog on a stick, hold it up in front of the radar, and it would cook the hot dog.
wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know they put out that much energy, that much heat.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Like micro.
Dang. Okay. Well, we're about out of time.
Okay.
We'll kind of leave it there for now. You heading across the country. We're gonna leave it right there with we'll stop in Mississippi. Had some
Okay.
California adventures and talked a little bit more about your childhood and some really good memories because if we remember, the 2 main reasons why we wanted to do this was because you were writing a book, and this would have been a much better option than a book because we can talk about it, we can work it out, but also I think it's a really good something that's therapeutic, not only for you, but I think for me as well, and for anyone that's watching out there, to remember that sometimes we just have to talk through things, to remember things, to work through things. And that's what we call shadow work. That's what we call inner child work. And it really helps to think about things, and even if sometimes we have to piece things together, it helps us to heal and to become better people. So this was really awesome. Had a great time with you today, Dad. I feel like we worked through some stuff and talked about some really good things that I think help you sleep a little bit better at night, and learned a little bit more about you and about family, and always love spending time with you. So we'll catch back up next week. Hopefully everyone will join us next week for our time here on Kelly's Chronicles, just telling stories and having memories and laughs and sometimes tears and just good old fun. So guys, we hope you guys have a wonderful week, and please join us for next time, and we will talk to you soon.